Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna, we're studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text 20, it's December 22nd, 2020. And so this is, text 20. Na Jayate Mriyate Ba Kadachin Nayam Budva Bhavita Va Na Bhuya Ajo Nitya Shashvata Yam Purano Na Hanyate Anyamane Sharire Jayate Mriyate Vakadachin Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya Jonicha Shashvata Yam Parano Nahanyate Hanyamane Sharire Jayate Mriyate Vakadachin Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya Jonicha Shashvata Yam Parano Hanyate Hanyamane Sharire Najayate Mriyate Vakadachin Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya Jonicha Shashvata Yam Parano Hanyate Hanyamane Sharire
Najayate Mriyate Vakadachin Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya Ajunitya Sasvato Yam Purano Ahanyate Hanyamane Sharire
Hanyate Hanyamane Sharire
Najayate Mriyate Vakadachin
Najayate Mriyate Vakadachin
Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya
Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya
Ajoditya Shashvato Yam Purano
Ajoditya Shashvato Yam Purano
Nahanyate Anyamane Sharire
Nahanyate Hanyamane Sharire
Najayate Mriyate Vakadachin
Najayate Mriyate
Vakadachin
Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya
Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya
Nitya Shashvato Yam Prano
Ajoditya Shashvato
hanyamane sharire.
Najayate miyate vakarachin.
Najayate miyate vakarachin.
Nayam budva bhavita vanabuya.
Nayam budva bhavita vanabuya.
Ajo nitya sasvato yam purano.
Ajo nitya shashvato yam purano.
Nan hanyate hanyamane sarire.
Nahayate hanyamane
sharire.
Nahayate miyate vakarachin. Najayate miyate vakarachin. Nayam budva bhavita vanabuya. Nayam budva bhavita vanabuya. Nitya sasvato yam purano. Ajo nitya sasvato yam purano. Nahayate hanyamane sharire. Prema, you want to chant this verse?
Krishna, Krishna. Na,
Now,
never.
never,
Jayate,
Jayate,
takes birth.
takes birth,
Riyate,
Riyate,
never dies.
never dies,
Ba,
Wow,
either.
either,
Kadachit,
Kadachit,
at any time, past, present, or future.
anytime, past, present, and future.
Na,
Now,
never.
never,
I am. This. Utva,
Buddha,
came into being.
came into being,
Bhavita,
Bhavita,
will come to be.
will come to be,
Ba,
Va,
or
or,
na,
Na,
not.
Na,
Bhuya,
Booyah,
or has come to be.
or has come to be,
Aja,
Aja,
unborn.
unborn,
Nitya,
Nitya,
eternal.
eternal,
Shashvata,
Shashvata,
permanent.
permanent,
I am. This.
this,
Purana,
Purana,
the oldest.
the oldest,
Na,
Na,
never.
never,
Hanyate,
Hanyate,
is killed.
is killed,
Hanyamane,
Hanyamane,
being killed.
being killed,
Sarire,
Sarire,
by the body.
by the body.
Translation. For the soul, there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth in the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree or anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Kathopanishad also, we find a similar passage which reads, Jayate miyate vavi paschin nayam kutaschin navi bhuva kaschit ajonicha shashvatayam parano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. It's from the Kathopanishad 1.2.18. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse there is one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky, owing to clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is there for daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky, early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are 2 kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, the Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Kathopanishad in this way. Nuraniyan Makto Mahiyan Atmasya Jantur Nihito Guhayam Tam Akratupashati Vita Shoko Datu Prasadan Mahima Atmana. From Kathopanishad 1.2.20. Quote, both the super soul Paramatma and the atomic soul Jivatma are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being, and only one who has become free from all material desires, as well as lamentations, can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters, and Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishta Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayambhupamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Lustra Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padavan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatayurvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Nidayate Mriyate Bhakara Chinnayam Bhutva Bhavita Vana Bhuya Ajonicha Shashvato Yamparano Mahanyate Hanyamane Sharire. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. The soul is unborn, everlasting, eternal, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So, happy birthday, Drew.
Yeah.
So, right here, so it's your birthday, and right here in this verse, Krishna is telling you you're not born.
What's that?
What's going on here? Right here, first words, Najayate, never takes birth. Okay, so Krishna's casting doubt on this whole birthday thing.
Should we just leave?
Right. If the whole thing is a false premise, then yeah. All right. Yeah. So okay. So there's this term, happy birthday, and so yeah. Right. So actually, yeah. For happy birthdays, then this is the process. This is the process to hear and to follow a process to realize that actually we don't take birth. We don't take birth. Ajopisana vyayavana bhutanam mishropisam prakritim svamadishtaya sambhavam mamaya. In the 4th chapter, Krishna says that he is Aja. He is unborn. And we're like God in some ways, and in some ways not. Just like we can say the sun rays are like the sun in some ways, but they're not completely the same as the sun. And in some ways the sun rays are different from the sun. Hare Krishna Lakshmi Priya. The sun rays are different from the sun, but they're not completely different, right? They're just like the sun is hot and emanates light, so does a little photon of sun ray. So there's some similar. So similarly, we're like rays of God, rays of Krishna, and so we are like Krishna in some ways, but not completely the same. And some way that we're the same is as spirit souls. We are also unborn, and a way that we're different from Krishna is that we tend to forget that our nature is spiritual. Krishna doesn't forget. We tend to forget that our nature. So forgetting that our nature is spiritual, forgetting that our nature is loving, devotional connection with Supreme Personality of Godhead, forgetting our nature, then we come under the illusion that we've taken birth. A type of analogy that
that illusion for sure.
That we've taken birth. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. And so, just like, so how to understand this, because this is key here in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. So just the dream reality, right? In modern decades, we have the virtual reality metaphor, but it's kind of the same as the dream metaphor. So then we are this person, we are this body in the dream, whatever. We are this body in the dream. But the actual person in the analogy, the person lying on the bed, doesn't take birth in that dream reality as the bird flying or the king enjoying in the palace or the terrified person running from a tiger or a monster, right? So yes, like the consciousness identifies, yes, I have this, I'm about to die, or I'm enjoying like anything. But actually, the actual person never takes birth in that dream reality. And so similarly, the soul, that's what Prabhupada was getting. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born. But because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. So this is a dream reality. This is a dream reality. Thinking that we are these characters. And so the body goes through these changes, but the soul, sleeping to its actual identity, never actually takes birth in Florida or France or Philadelphia or something like that. Okay. The soul exists transcendentally, just as the body on the bed exists in the actual reality, transcendental to the dream illusion. So to come to these realizations, that's the actual source of substantial happiness, as opposed to the ephemeral happiness that the person in the dream might experience. There's no substance there. There's no substance there. So the actual happiness of the person is to wake up, Jeev Jago. Wake up to your real life. So waking up to the real life of the soul and realizing I'm not the body. Right? So that's why Prabhupada tells us a few hundreds of thousands of times, you're not the body. You're not the body. Because this is compassion. Because to the extent that we misidentify spirit, soul with body, there's no happiness. There is only anxiety. It doesn't matter how many happy birthdays we say or receive. Just stark reality. Won't matter how many happy birthdays we say or receive year after year. If we're under the impression, experientially, that I am this body, Bayam Dvitiya Biniveshatasya, then our experience is anxiety. And of course, much of material life is playing the looking good game, the I got it together game. Underneath all of that is anxiety. Anxiety, why? Because we exist. And it's natural to want life and existence. But if we're identifying with the body, gross body or subtle body, false ego, I am this really successful person, I'm this really smart, I'm this really rich person, I'm this person who achieved this and that. And that's all going to die. That's all going to die. Today, tomorrow. It's all going to be crushed, torpedoed, a term I like. It's like a submarine is torpedoed and then the ship sinks. Right? So this whole material, all the upadis, our upadi being near mukta tattva, rishikeni sevana bhakti uttama. So, and as long as we're identifying with anything that will be destroyed, happiness is limited. And then we need to take to drinking or smoking or internet addiction, or we can all have our addictions, and that's to escape from that terrifying reality. I'm going to be destroyed. I'm going to be destroyed. So happiness, genuine happiness of the self, of the soul, not dream happiness. Genuine happiness of the soul, that's Yeah, we just quoted that verse. Rishikeena is Sevanam. Sevanam means service. Means service. And because this has been a theme in recent discussions. We're not to realize we're not the body. That's nice. It's not complete though. There are different approaches. A lot of what the Buddha taught is to realize we're not the body. He gave methods. So that's nice to realize we're not the body. But who are we positively? Now we have Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. That we are positively spirit, soul. But that won't be complete either unless we realize it won't be, that becomes complete as we realize what are the natural activities of the soul. What are the natural activities of the soul? And that's why here in this verse, and as Bhagavad Gita goes on, it's talking about relationship. So the natural activity of the soul is not to be God, it's to serve God. Not to be God, to serve God. So that's why there's a distinction. Actually, the purports in this chapter, Prabhupada talks about sometimes people, in the text 27, there's a purport Prabhupada talks about. That some people might hear some lectures and they think, yes, I'm not the body, I'm spirit, soul. And they come to think, yes, I am God, I am the super soul. So that's not helpful. So actually, Jivarasrupoi Krishnera Nichidas, our nature as souls is to serve the Supreme Soul. Super Soul and Krishna. Krishna is the source even of the Super Soul. So that's our nature. Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. Our nature is service. Our nature, then we're happy. Then we're happy. Dharma means that which cannot be separated from a thing. The Dharma of fire is to be hot, the Dharma of sugar is to be sweet, the Dharma of the soul is to serve. We won't get away from service. Our choice is where to serve, how to direct our service. And when we direct it towards the dream world, we will be frustrated. And so this really, what's happening here, it really is Hare Krishna. Yeah, what's happening here, it really is the Vedic spirit of birthday. The Vedic spirit of birthday is very much not me-centered. I know when I first moved to this area, North Florida, Electra County, in 1992, and then in the 90s, when Sita and Abhi had birthdays, I would sponsor the Sunday feast. And so the idea is, okay, birthdays, so it's an opportunity to serve prasad, and so birthdays. And so here, so it's Jewish birthday. So somehow you're creating.
Sunday feast.
You're creating that we get to engage in kirtan. Hare Krishna, Nalini and Subal. Hare Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So
you're creating that we're hearing Bhagavad Gita. This is the foundational service. Shravanam, Kirtanam. We hear and then we chant. Kirtan really means to describe the glories of Krishna. And you're creating, we'll get to do the service of consuming Ladu Prasadam. Monster.
There we go.
It's rough, but someone has to do it. So this is the Vedic spirit of birthday, to realize to realize, like, let me use my service propensity, let me use my time, energy, and resources for coming to realize that actually I'm birthless. Actually, I'm birthless. So that each year, ideally each day, but at least each year, certainly each decade, like, have I realized more than the previous day, year, decade, that I'm actually this birthless, eternal living entity who's not intrinsically connected with this dream world. If you say dream world, it's not to minimize it. The temporary can be used to serve the eternal, the relative. The relative can be used to serve the absolute. So this body is temporary. The energy of matter is eternal, but the forms it takes is temporary. The names are temporary. And so, yeah, so I was like, yeah, so we talked about birth, and then another stage of material bodies is producing byproducts, right? So then
Well, it's forever.
she is here. She is here. Yes. And so, so realization that, okay, so to take birth and engage the body that took birth in eating, sleeping, producing children, and defending. There's nothing special about that. Zero. No, just nothing special about that. The squirrels are doing that. Nothing against the squirrels. The chickens, the cockroaches are doing it. Telling it this is as it is, right? As it is. Okay, we're not sugarcoating the truth. So there's just nothing special about birthdays. Now, okay, then that's why in the Vedic conception, there's what's called second birth. And second birth, that's special. And second birth, essentially, like Prabhupada describes, you know the story when Prabhupada first met Bhaktisiddhanta? You know that story?
I think so.
Yeah. 1922, his friend Narendra Maulik, his friend, and anyhow, Prabhupada had become rather skeptical, even cynical about so-called sadhus, saints, and all of that thing.
For me,
Because, yeah, he had seen a lot of kind of fake stuff. And his father was so compassionate and merciful that his father would invite anyone. And, okay, whatever. But, Narendra said, no, there's really a special guru, special saintly person at this place in Calcutta. And we know we should see him. We should see him. And so Prabhupada, known as Abhay Charan at the time, said, no, not into it. No, I don't believe this stuff. Now, Prabhupada, he was always a pure devotee of Krishna, always a pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Just the way that Krishna consciousness and Chaitanya, Gaudiya Vaishnava, the way he'd seen it represented, he saw like, this is not the authentic real thing. Okay. So Prabhupada would say that his friend dragged him there. And then they come up, they walk up a flight of stairs. It was the Calcutta Gaudiya Math. And there's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And even though Prabhupada had skepticism, he definitely had the etiquette. So they offered obeisances. And before they could get up from offering obeisances, Bhaktisiddhanta, he gave to Abhay Charan. He said, yes, you should preach the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev in English. You should preach the message in English around the world. So basically, before Bhaktisiddhanta said like, hello, you might think hello would come first.
maybe namaste.
Namaste, hello. how you doing? He gave him his life mission. And then Prabhupada argued. Prabhupada argued that, because Prabhupada accepted that that's the best thing for the world, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, he accepted that. Because Prabhupada's biological father, Gaur Mohan Dey, was a pure devotee. And so Prabhupada accepted that, but he said, but India is a subjugated country. So who will listen to anything we have to say? We need independence from the British. And then Bhaktisiddhanta said, this is transcendental. It's not dependent on any temporary political fluctuations. So Prabhupada, in later years, he would say, I argued with Bhaktisiddhanta and I was happily defeated. And when he walked out of the Calcutta Gaudiya Math, he said to his friend Narendra Mullik, he said, the message of Lord Chaitanya is in good hands. You got, this isn't like other so-called swamis in good hands. So Prabhupada would say that formally, officially, 11 years later in 1933, he took formal official initiation. But he said his real initiation was at that first meeting when he accepted in his heart, life and soul, to serve the mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And that's second birth. And that birth is distinctive to the human form. That birth is distinctive to the human form. Because that birth, as this is what this portion of Bhagavad Gita is about, including this verse, that birth is, I am dedicated to the life of consciousness. This is a Bhaktisiddhanta word, the substratum. I don't hear Prabhupada using substratum, but Bhaktisiddhanta Brahma Samhita uses that word. The substratum of all existence is not matter. It's not nothing. It's consciousness. We can go fuller into it. It's personhood, personal consciousness. So it's even Brahmano hi Pratishtam. Krishna says, I, the supreme personality of Godhead, I am the source of the white light of the Brahman Jyoti. So we can understand that the actual foundational context of everything, is consciousness. Never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings on the battlefield, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. We're eternally persons. So that personality, consciousness, personhood, that's the actual context. To the extent that we're identifying with the dream characters, then we have what we've come to call the human context, which is really the material context. And so we focus a lot in Sattva, to get to the material context. Birth, death, old age, disease. No, it's the illusion of birth, death, old age, and disease, because we're identifying with that character in the dream. Again, the person sleeping on the bed, the actual person sleeping on the bed doesn't get born in the dream world, but just through the illusion. We think we're getting born and done. So this process of moving towards happier and happier birthdays it's about shifting the context from matter, and that shift starts with accepting the material context: birth, death, old age, miseries, difficulties, disturbances coming from eating, sleeping, mating, defending, my propensity to cheat you, your propensity to cheat me, this material context. Resist that rather than accept it in the spirit of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. The world stands in no need of any reformer. Because if we're not accepting the material context, it means we're still playing the game. If I could just fix this aspect of the material energy, my life will be grand and glorious. Right? If I can just reform this, if I could just get this person to change and be exactly how I want her or him to be, then I'm living unlimited happiness. Yeah, and that it just that just
Once I get a house.
there you go. Yeah,
More money, once
yeah,
someone gets
yeah.
more money.
yeah. You've realized Bhagavad Gita precisely.
Just
Right.
give me all your money.
So then to move toward, let's call it second birth, truly happy birthdays for the spirit soul, then it's training ourselves to respond to the material context with dedication to serve the mission of the soul, to serve the mission of the self-realized souls. And then, so consciousness is the context, and then the different changes of material energy, that's the fluctuating content. Yami nadyate pusham pushashaba samaduka sukham dhira so mitattvaya kalpate. Krishna says, okay, that one who is steady amongst these fluctuations of the material content, one who is steady in their service, for such a person, liberation from the dream reality is assured. Matras parshastu kantiya, shitoshna sukdugata agama painoni chastam titikshasva bharata. And that's Krishna saying the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. They arise from dream sense perception. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So Prabhupada, he quotes the verse spoken by Maharaj Parikshit at the start of Krishna book, the start of the 10th canto. Nivrita tarsher upagiyamana bhaval sadat shutra. That he said, Nivrita, Prabhupada defined, Nivrita means finished. I'm just finished. Yeah, but what about you? No, I'm just finished. An example of that is like, it's described about Maharaj Parikshit. He understood, he got cursed, he could have fought the curse, and just described, he was complete. We can imagine maybe in the kingdom there were still lots of loose ends to tie up. And we can imagine that in a few hours he responsibly did whatever he did. But it's described, he just finished with material life, the material illusion, the material identification. Went to the Ganges, and that became the scene, the context for the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm not saying that it's your service, Drew or mine or anyone here, to go to the Ganges now like that. But yeah, maybe it is our service. But we can follow the example and apply it with intelligence to our life, to at least with some sincerity move towards being finished, which with trying to enjoy material nature. In that same verse, Nivritarsha Bhagiyamana, but well, really, Maharaj Parikshit, he describes just like, it's like, accepting material context means accepting that, like, I've really messed up to come here. And meaning it's like I'm spiritually ill, just like if someone's materially ill, and I don't acknowledge it, and I don't take the medicine or follow the diet, I'm going to get more sick. So spiritually ill, yes, I've allowed my pure consciousness to get covered. I've forgotten my original nature, spirit, soul, eternal servant of God. And so it's described that the diet is prasadam.
La douce. How much was la douce?
Yes. Well, they're
Jai.
even one is a meal in itself. And the medicine is this chanting. The medicine is this chanting, like as much as possible. Kirtan, chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, reading Bhagavad Gita. I just read, I was on Facebook, and some member of our community, she's Anandini, she's thinking to read on Friday, which is Gita Jayanti, to read all 18 chapters, English and Sanskrit. So that's the sort of thing that's we're planning at Gita Jayanti. I don't know exactly how much we'll get to. We sometimes get to about half the chapters over the years. Yeah, so hearing and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. And accept that, like, there's going to, on the material level, there's going to be happiness and distress. So that we're not like fair weather friends with this process. Fair weather friends means like, yes, when it's a sunny day, I'm with you. Like, no, Prabhupada, Krishna, no, when things are tough, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So that, when the going gets tough, I'm steady chanting Hare Krishna. In fact, it should even be that when going gets tough and there's so much pressure and there's no time for chanting rounds today, no time for Bhagavad Gita today. That those are the days where it's just like, it's especially important that I clear time for what's eternally important. Steadiness. So this verse reads, Najayate miyate vakada chinnayam bhutva bhavitava nabuya jo nitya shasvito yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. The soul is unborn, everlasting, eternal, undying, primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Thank you for your attention. Hare Krishna. I welcome any comments, sharing, questions at this time.
I'll first say I'm so thankful for you all being here, and also just your willingness here, Govinda, to host this and to share your experience, your knowledge, your just your connection to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, and Prabhupada. I'm so thankful for all of that, because this is like the only thing that I wanted for my birthday, was just to have the opportunity to experience, like, to feel fully connected to a Krishna conscious program, rather than like, oh, I'm driving in my car and I'm like tuned in, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Or I'm at work, I'm tuned in, but I'm not. So it's been really special, and a few of the things they've shared have definitely like drawn something out of me. Just kind of like both like I feel like I'm having difficulty at times distinguishing who's talking within my consciousness of like my mind or like my soul, if I am ever coming into contact with my soul. And I think one of my challenges is that my mind feels quite like doubtful and negative. And the only thing that I hear from my soul is just basically desire.
Yeah.
Like there's, for me, my sense is like there's a desire for that experience of like a second birth. And there's a desire for like immersion in devotional service. I've actually like, I think I'll always remember my experience in the advanced course of just like, or my second experience in the advanced course of like connecting with a desire to be connected to my diamond, myself as my soul, and just to service and to Krishna and to love Krishna. And I think that like how I feel, how like how I experience my mind though, and like with like just mental and emotional stuff is I feel like my posture is now, I just feel very like doubtful. And maybe the word is like downtrodden. Like I cannot, like I can't do it. And it's really like saddening for me.
It's emotional.
Yeah. So it's really hard, and I think the only where I have like benefited is like there have been a lot of things that I wanted to do for like years. Like I wanted to be in private practice for massage, and I'm about to do that. And I had some clients slash friends like really just kind of like put their arms around me and just like say like we're gonna meet weekly. And sometimes I just think that I need to like create some kind of like support system in terms of like spirituality and Krishna consciousness, and they supported me to make my schedule like during the week so I can attend Friday, Saturday, Sunday, work something out with Kara. But yeah, I feel like really, really blocked by my mind. And it's
You're gonna blocked by your mind and like tormented by your mind, and it's like it's like your higher self, the voice of soul and higher intelligence is like trying to be heard, but it's like a constant struggle. I'm experiencing it, Drew, as like you're like traveling in a desert and you're dry, and like tonight's an oasis. It's an oasis. At the same time, it's not just joy and dancing. It's like also there's a lot coming up for you that you haven't allowed to come up for you. Like in the relief of the oasis for a few hours, there is joy and dancing and celebration, and there's nourishment for the soul. And also a lot of stuff that like you needed to push down, a lot of sadness is coming up, pain and sadness.
Because like when I heard when you shared about a second birth, it reminds me of those emails I've gone around for like I've seen for I think years now about initiation, and I've had like desire to go in that direction. And at the same time, I think that like just I allow my mind to just kind of stop me from ever taking any steps forward. And if I do take some steps forward and then maybe I stumble, then it's just like, oh, see, you actually won't be steady, or you can't do it. So
it becomes
it's just like boom.
Confirming the self-defeating stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing. Just want to, and I don't mean to invalidate it. I do want to share that desire that mostly you're feeling frustrated about. That desire, Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, they're noticing that desire. That desire for being steady in chanting Krishna's names, for serving Prabhupada's mission. And so Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, they're noticing, they're appreciating that I'm trusting that that deepest part of you is seen by the most important persons.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think if I'm like honest with myself, I'm feeling impatient, and that it's not from like I'm not experiencing it as like urgency. I'm experiencing it as like more like a combination of like anxiety and kind of like fear and worry. And so it leads to me being impatient, but when when you said like, oh, I have the sense that you're being seen. It's like, oh, well, I have taken the step to be leaving my job, which often contributes to me feeling drained.
Yeah.
And making a change to my schedule so that I can attend programs more. And if I'm leaving a job that leads to me feeling drained the majority of days that I'm off, like that's certainly going to support me in feeling like more motivated and hopefully even steady when I'm not so motivated to chant at the very least.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're letting your frustration, pain, impatience, you're letting that move you towards towards actions that will really support you to have a more spiritual grounding to your life, Krishna conscious grounding. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So it's not just grungy.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Drew.
You know, I found myself thinking about the soul. I found myself recently thinking how, in terms of the soul's, like the deserve and the desire, and the soul's like manifestation of a specific body.
Yeah.
And trying to explain this to like a teenager.
Yeah.
You know, grew up in Krishna consciousness, but I guess it began by him saying, I don't understand why I can't be whole or complete without Krishna.
Okay.
Why would, and then Krishna made it that way. Why would you make it that way? And you know, I just like spitting out stuff that, you know, to argue with them, you know.
Trying to respond, yeah.
And you know, and saying like, well, that's the kind of paradox of Krishna, is like he's whole and complete without us, yet simultaneously we're a part of him. So it's like he's complete with us, but then he's not limited. So he has the ability to be complete without us. And then saying like, and just thinking about in those terms of deserve and desire, how we got these bodies. And thinking about the soul in terms of evolution of the soul's consciousness.
Yes.
So the consciousness that's animating my body is the soul.
Yes.
And that soul and who I am is on an evolution of consciousness.
Well, hopefully.
We
could also be on de-evolution depending on the choices we make.
Yeah,
it can be devolving or evolving. That depends on how we use our free will.
Right. I mean, I didn't focus on the devolving part, you know.
Right.
But I just tried to explain the world to him in terms of like why some people are good or bad or evil or whatever, or that's our perception, or they really, really are, or you know, whatever. However, we're seeing the world at that moment, or seeing ourselves and being hard on ourselves, you know, and feeling like low self-esteem, or feeling like angry with Krishna. I can't be a part, you know, how come he makes things this way, that's hard for me. So then 100% responsibility consciousness is that this body and the time and place and circumstances that I took birth are of my choosing.
I'm the source of it. Yeah, choosing. Maybe I didn't consciously choose it, but I'm responsible for it.
But through the deserve and desire.
Yes.
So I have desires,
Yeah.
but I may not deserve all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very specific solution, like scientific formula that goes in and then comes out with my soul in a body, you know, in some yuga, on some planet, in some form. It's really a perfect combination of that deserve and that desire. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I was like rewinding this question of, you know, that sounded sort of resentful, like, Why does Krishna make it so that I can't be complete without him? And then, and it's like, yeah, and he can be complete without us, And I also interface that, but Krishna's missing, like Krishna's longing for us, like Krishna wants to be with us.
Krishna wants our love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants the connection, the relationship.
Yeah, he's self-satisfied.
Yeah.
And we have the capacity to expand his bliss through exchanging loving service. And Krishna wants that. Yeah. He's not needy for it.
And we don't get that luxury. It's like, as it's like we really need Krishna. We really need to be eternally blissful, because it's our eternal original constitutional position. If we ignore that, we'll never have that eternal bliss. Like we need him to serve. We need him to serve eternally. And
we need to remember who we are. Yeah, just like for the person on the bed dreaming to like really be happy and vibrant, you need to wake up. What the happiness and peace and fulfillment available in the dream, it's really limited and dull. We get to wake up to our actual life. Krishna has emanated a system where we get to be like ever increasingly, eternally blissful in exchanging love. It's really not a bad deal.
yeah, I mean, I'm getting good with these teenagers that like arguing from the teenage mind point where nothing's fair. And just how easily the responsibility drops away, and it's like, yeah, it's not fair. You can just get there really quickly. So so in the design, Krishna gives us a service that will create eternal bliss for us, and then at some point we decide to try something else. And that being transcendental of our karma, being transcendental of these bodies and this material nature is available anytime we choose it, by putting Krishna in the center of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we don't have to change what we're doing. Of course, we want to be honest. Is this feel in alignment? Am I pretending not to know? Is this working for me or not? But to find suitable work and means and use them for Krishna, then instantly that being transcendental to our karma, being transcendent of the suffering.
We experience the natural bliss of the soul in when we shift our consciousness, just as you described.
And that's the way to take responsibility now.
Yeah.
I don't think teenagers got it, but I was feeling like I think I get something. I'm talking to myself here.
Right. So teenager is guru for Bhakti Devin. Whatever teenager gets or doesn't get, Bhakti Devin got. Yeah, I can choose to chant Hare Krishna right now. That's pretty good. So that sounds like a successful conversation.
Yeah.
That's good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's like whatever the past. Sometimes we use this a lot in coach training, personal growth. But like there's nature, nurture arguments. Nurture means my parents did it to me, or my step-parents did it to me. Nurture.
My stepdad.
Nature means my grandparents did it to me. It's the DNA and the chromosomes. Okay, and we can analyze all that, and the past can explain a lot about the present. And the beautiful, powerful thing about this bhakti yoga is we're not willing to be victim of nature and nurture.
Mm-hmm.
That sure, the past can explain a lot about why I am who I am, and how I show up to you right now here on December 22nd at 7:20 p.m. 2020, how I show up, I'm 100% responsible for that. And the urging is, and show up as a Krishna conscious spirit soul. And that's our bliss. And then I become a touchstone for spiritual transformation. And that's, ahetuki pratyataya yatma suprasidati, that if I'm sincere, nothing at any moment can get in the way of me serving Prabhupada, serving Krishna. It can be even whatever, the most tragic situation, but in my mind, I can think, Hare Krishna. And then I'm out of the dream. Nothing can get in the way if I'm sincere.
It would be, you know, this is like, this is the teenager. But Krishna doesn't let us remember our past lives. So if we don't remember, we shouldn't be like deserving the karma from them, right? If I remember, oh, then I could change, I could do better. But how come I can't remember? It's not fair.
That's a question.
It's good. It
I
really
got
drives
those.
the-
I get those questions
Yeah.
more than once, and the way I have responded to it in ways that continues the conversation. Okay, well, yeah, it seems unfair and it doesn't make sense. And if you were Krishna, how will you organize it? You know, and then from that, so much conversation come. Okay, how will you organize it? You are Krishna, and then you have your past and past selves that's turned against you. How will you organize it? Let's see. You know, maybe you have a good idea for Krishna. You can send him a letter and tell him like, here's a better way to bring back your spirit soul back to you.
I never thought to go that direction. I think I said something like, well, what would the difference be? Like, what would you do now if you remembered? Like, you know, but you know, we learn this Bhagavad Gita, we learn about Krishna, and then we know what to do now. We do the same thing, you know, trying to do more of the same thing now, trying to be, you know, have Krishna more in my heart and mind and always, you know. I'd be doing the same thing if I could, you know, hopefully that would be the same goal if I remembered.
Yeah. And why did you choose the path that you choose?
I don't know, it sounds dangerous to try to figure that out.
It's kind of cool that, you know, like some people, about them knowing how to remember in the past, their past life, that's like, for other people, it's impossible. How can that be? How would Krishna help make them be able to do that?
Mm-hmm.
It's a mystery forever.
Yeah, it's a mystery. Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Yes.
Bhakti Devin. Thank you, Nalini.
Earlier, you were speaking about like thousands and thousands times and thousands and so many times. Srila Prabhupada said, we are not this body. Yeah? And then you spoke about like, okay, like years after years, decade after decades, how much do I realize that?
Yeah.
And I can see in my mind, I'm hearing that, and I think every time I create some expectation of what it look like,
Okay.
or what it should look like, and then in that expectation, I feel like no progress whatsoever. Like, yeah, because I heard it for 30 plus years, and then you're not this body. Well, you know, if someone pinched me, I feel like, hi, oh, ouch.
You hurt me.
You hurt me, or hurt my feeling, or all that. And at the same time, I was thinking like, okay, well, what will be a symptom of that? And maybe my expectation is not correct about what it means. And maybe with that expectation of not being correct, maybe I'm not seeing what needs to be seen.
Okay. You might be missing a piece about that whole paradigm.
Yeah. And then I was thinking like the Vaikuntha's consciousness is no anxieties.
Yeah.
And then it seems that the more we identified with the soul, or the less we identified with the body, the less anxiety we have. And then on that platform, if I look
Yeah.
you know, like it's my progress over the many years. Yeah, I can see
You can see
there's
progress.
a lot of progress. Yeah. So I was just thinking like, yeah, well, how to, you know, because otherwise it becomes like discouraging.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm hearing I'm not this body and I have no realization, zero realization.
That could be
But
disheartening.
is that true? You know, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you like to speak about that.
Well, I think you spoke about it nicely. I don't know what it did. Yeah. So I, like I said, because from some point of view, it's like I'm so attached to my body and I'm thinking my body like that. Okay, well that's like one perspective. At the same time, you know, one thing like some harm or pain is coming to my body. I'm so attached and I don't like bodily pain, and that's because I'm so attached. Okay, there's that. Yeah, it's often Prabhupada speaks in terms of material desire, and if we palpably experience material desire decreasing, that's a sign of progress.
Mm-hmm.
That-
But we are identifying less and less with the body and not the mind of the body.
Yeah, yeah. The whole lust, anger, greed thing, is that diminishing? And then we had this conversation a few weeks ago, and then after class, and
About old age.
yeah, the old age group said, well, and well, I'm not really progressing. It's just like a sign of, it's just a sign of as the body ages, I'm not making any spiritual progress. But that's not true, because for someone who's dedicated themselves for years and decades, then as the body ages, yeah, I'm just feeling less like greed. I need to hoard things, less lust, less anger over petty stuff and resentments and things like that. But that's not true for everyone who goes in. That's why so many, as they get into elder age, it becomes this bitter experience, because
So
I
much
really-
bitterness.
I really want to enjoy, like I was enjoying at 25 years old, but now at 65, 75, 85, I can't.
It's too full pizza.
Yeah, they can't dance like they used to. The people aren't attracted to me for sex like they used to be, and some commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that everyone just like feels that joy. Prabhupada tells a story, or I think it's a parable or a real king, that there was the king and the minister was saying, yeah, sex desire is always there, like even in old age. And the king said, no, when someone gets old age, then they lose that. So the minister said, let's do an experiment. So then there was someone like elderly, really old, on the deathbed. So the minister said, let's go visit him and bring your daughter. So the king had a daughter. So it's the king. And the king comes with his daughter. And the king saw that the man on the bed was just like focused on the daughter, not even the king. So the king said to the minister, you were right. Prabhupada tells that story. So, so if we experience, now at the same time as the body ages, then the senses are less powerful, but it doesn't mean the desire is less in the subtle body.
Mm-hmm.
The desire being less in the subtle body, that depends on our spiritual practice.
So that could be another symptom.
Yeah.
The subtle body, the mind, and the intelligence, that's the
Exactly.
subtle body.
Yeah, that's where lust resides: mind, intelligence, senses.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like at the end of our life, that doesn't die.
Yeah.
So if we cultivate, like as the senses dwindles, you know, less attachment, less desire, less agitation of the senses due to aging, then it become a blessing. If in our mind we don't try to put fuel in the fire of desire or the fire of, so then at the end of life, then our subtle body is kind of peaceful.
Yeah.
So in our next life, we may come to a place where those agitation are not there.
Maybe
if we take another birth.
a more sattvic birth.
A more sattvic birth where those agitation or the senses are more subdued, the mind is more subdued, and then naturally, like have a vehicle that's more conducive for absorbing spiritual life more fully and deeply, and really giving ourselves to spiritual life from an easier platform.
Yeah, right. So and then even in terms of just direct bodily pains, okay, and I really hate pain like that. Like even in terms of that, yeah, it's less of it. It's terrible, but it's less of a disturbance for me than it would have been 40 years ago.
Yeah, like there's a greater surrender. Anyway, the body is going to be full of pain more and more we go ahead.
Yeah, it's designed that way.
It's designed that way.
So yeah, so it's like it's the kitten and the rat, right? So that as we respond to the material context of birth, birthdays, death, old age, cheating, eating, sleeping, mating, when we respond to the context with increasing view towards self-realization and Krishna consciousness, then the disturbances, the difficulties of material context, they're more and more of a shelter, including and especially old age, death, and disease. And to the extent that we're kamakamis, later in the second chapter, Krishna uses the term kamakami, reminds me of kamikaze. To the extent that Krishna, kamakami means one whose goal, one whose desire is to increase desires. Then as we enter into old age, of course, this old age is a very relative term. Prabhupada, old age means proximity to death. Old age means close to death. So we don't know here who's the oldest from that definition, right? So, so to the extent that we're kamikamis, because like someone endeavoring in devotional service, I got all these desires and I wish they would dissipate and go away. So that's healthy. That's spiritually healthy. We're convalescing. We're getting better. But the rat mentality, the kamakami mentality, my desire is to increase desire. And then entering into old age, disease, death is really hellish. Hare Krishna, Ramachandra. You look blissful. Any other comments or questions at this time? Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya
Wow.